Shalom, Admin Brenda. First one in now. Can you hear me okay? We had a problem with the other stream. Let's hope this one's okay. Right, Thea, Pay, Vicky, you back? Yeah, I said I had to end the other one because it was having that problem where it's buffering for people. And last time that happened, when we ended the stream and started a new one, then that fixed it. So let's hope it's fixed now. So far, so good. Okay, so far it's not buffering. Shalom, Trisha. Anybody watching this later would be like, what happened? Because I'll delete the other one. Why is he not doing the usual shaloms to everybody? Maybe we'll give those guys a few more minutes to come back in. So usually the protocol when this happens is I'll copy the new stream link over to Hebrew Literacy on Telegram. And also to Bnei Israel chat on Telegram as well. Okay? So maybe I'll send it to a couple other people who sometimes have it separate places. Let's see. And then... all right. Well, we got 10 of you back, so maybe we'll start again. Okay, so while I was explaining, you can see it's diagrammed already. I was hoping that I was explaining that ve'otecha, that et is the DDO, the definite direct object marker. Right? That's this guy right here. You'll note the spelling changes when we put suffixes on it. That's this guy. Okay. So we have three components there in that one word. Ve, and, or but. In green and in blue, the DDO, the definite direct object marker. So this is marking the object of the verb that's coming up. And then we have the last is cha, that's you or yours. Now, hey, shalom, Mark. Okay, it looks like most of you are back. Maybe we'll say the shaloms again. Why not? This time, Brenda's first. So, shalom, Edmund, Brenda, Thea, Pei, Vicky, Jeff, Harrison, Ryavith, Betty, Trisha, Mentat Assassin, Gary, Kenneth, Yakar, and Mark. All right. So it seems we had a couple stragglers, a couple over there that didn't quite make it over here yet. So, look, it's all right. At least we have a solution now. I'm glad it happened right at the beginning and not in the middle. So anyway, usually the usual syntax in Torah, Hebrew, and in most of Tanachit is you're going to want to have the verb first, right? Usually, let's go to this screen. I'll show you over here. So usually we like to have, of course, reading this direction, verb, and then somewhere over here we'll have subject, okay? And then usually you'll have object over here, although sometimes object can be here as well, right? Or here. Now, if the object comes before the verb, it comes over here, that's giving us some kind of special emphasis. Okay? So that's making the object emphasized. Unless you're answering a question, right? Like if the previous pasuk, the previous verse just said, you know, what did he hit? And you could say, the ball he hit. Then it's not really special emphasis. I mean, it still kind of is, but it's trying to get the answer as close as possible to the question, right? So other than that, usually in Hebrew syntax, that's showing some emphasis. Hey, shalom, Michael. Yeah, don't forget to hit like. If you liked on the other one, it's not going to matter. I'm going to delete the other one. so here we have the. I'm not going to read it the way it's written. Okay, just for a second, I'm going to say the and et, which would be the DDO, cha and you. So that becomes otecha. But you, and then here's our verb, ekach, right? So this was our object. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. That's our object. And then here's our verb. And the verb's a sneaky one. It's lakach. You just have to learn that lakach, the lamed, likes to go away. Right? It likes to assimilate. So the dagesh in the kof is telling you there's a lamed hiding inside of me. Right? So this would have been a theoretical ancient el kach became ek kach, ek koch. So ek kach, the aleph, reminding you of the aleph in ani, I, right? Or anochi. And no, those are just synonyms, right? Just synonyms. It's not that God uses anochi. Other people use anochi also in the Bible. Okay. Ekach, I, lakach. I will take. So ve'el techa, and you, ekach, I will lakach, I will take. Umalachta. So we have another u there. Now, who knows the rule why the vav became a u? What's the rule name? Why we have this guy as an u? What's going on here? What's our rule? That's the u part of the rule. Shalom, Annie. So there's our rule. He's the bump schwa rule. Exactly. Gary got it. Good. Okay. And the M in the bump, that's what the mem is doing here. See? We'll color code them right. Because the word starts with a mem, that vav became a u. The u in bump schwa. The mem is the in bump schwa. Okay. Okay. Now the verbal root is malach. Malach. The mem and the lamed and the kaf. That's our root. Malach. And even if you didn't know this verb, you should know from all the brachas and all the blessings, you should know that melech is king, right? So a melech is someone who malachs. So malach is to reign, not from the sky, but R-E-I-G-N, reign. Shalom, Raphael. Shalom, Ricky. Okay, malach, and then the ta at the end of the verb. Whenever you see that ta reminds us of ata. Of the ta in ata. Okay. Those guys. Okay. So malachta is you reigned. But we have the vav at the front. Even though the vav looks like an u here, he's still a vav. This is still a vav conversive. And it's going to change the aspect. So malachta means ata malach. You ruled. You reigned, rather. Rule is mashal. It's similar, right? Malachta. Malachta, you reigned. U means and you will reign, right? We change the aspect. Sometimes it's easy to think of it as time, changing the time. It's just that when we get more advanced, you'll start to see that's not exactly about time. Okay. Umalachta. You know, it's funny. For some years, oftentimes when I'm translating something from Jewish Greek of the apostolic writings, or I'm reading something in there, they also have imperfect and perfect stuff. Some concepts that are similar to Tanachit, and sometimes I won't translate based on, well, a lot of the grammars say this should be present tense or this should be whatever. I look at it, it's imperfect, it's incompleted, and so I'm thinking about the Hebrew underneath the hood, right? The Hebrew that's underneath, that's driving that dialectical form of Jewish Greek. And I'll treat it as if it's, depending on what book we're looking at, but I'll treat it as if it's Hebrew a lot of times. And it's kind of cool now, what's in vogue now, just recently, in the Greek teaching world for Koine Greek, it's become in vogue. Some of the newest grammars don't even really talk much about time. They're focusing more on aspect, right? And there's some scholars think that the Koine Greek of the Bible only cared about aspect and not about time. And I'm just thinking, well. So you're saying it's like Hebrew under the hood? Because I've had people before tell me, oh, you can't translate it that way just because Hebrew's like this or whatever. But no. I really, really believe Hebrew is in their minds a lot of times. Even if they are writing it down in Greek, depending on which book we're talking about, right? Or it's being translated from Hebrew into Greek, even though we know Matthew. Well, there's good evidence that Matthew was Hebrew originally, because some of the early church fathers even claim they saw the scroll of Matthew, and they claim it predated the Greek, right? So we know that at least one of the books is in Hebrew first, and then later it's getting translated into Greek, and it makes sense that it's Jewish Greek, the flavor of this dialect, not just like normal Koine like everywhere else, but it's going to be close to Hebrew. It's going to be following the spirit of the biblical Hebrew, yeah. So, yeah, they're finally catching up, Raphael, exactly, I agree. Well, I'm not a Greek scholar or anything, but it was my suspicion. My suspicion. I thought, surely. And now this is like what's in vogue, right? Like there. So, yeah, Baruch Hashem, that's right. Learn Hebrew first before you do your Greek. All right. Umalachta. And you will reign as a melech, right? As a king. Be chol asher. Okay, be. So this is interesting. Usually we see mashal plus be as kind of the way to express it. So usually to rule something, it's not malach, it's similar. It's mashal. Mashal plus, and then you have bait over the thing that you're ruling over, right? And then whatever word. Right? Okay. And so it's interesting to see here, you don't have to do that with malach. But here they did. And I've been kind of sharing with you guys little things when I notice them, little interesting things about First Kings that kind of jump out at me. And that's one, that they're using the same bait that we would use with mashal. Right? You will rule over, you could say in, but doesn't sound right, over chol. All. And why is that chol and not kol? I'll give you a hint. Jeff mentioned it before. Begad kafat. The begad kafat rule, because we have a little vocal here, it's going to make the k become ch. It's going to lose that little dagesh, the weak dagesh that's in there. Bechol, over all, asher, which, te'aveh. So this verb means to desire, right? And the tav at the beginning of a verb, it tells us usually the same thing as a tav at the end. Not always. This particular form here, the tav, should make you think of, again, ata. Oi, that's terrible. The angle is hard. Writing on an upward angle, Okay. So again, we've got this guy. Right? Ata. So that reminds you again of ata. Ta. Okay. T. You, ave, desire. And the form, I just saw the next word, and it's not. I was thinking, should I tell them the other form? I've shared it with you before. This is one of those forms in Hebrew that's just kind of a pain. It's the imperfect second person masculine is the same as the imperfect third person feminine, right? And so I translate it as if it was you, and then my eyes fell down here. I was like, oh, don't! It's the feminine third person instead. So I'll show you why. So this next word, nefesh, of cha, right? The soul, the life of cha, of you, right? So we've got the same cha there that we had up above. Cha. Your nefesh. Well, nefesh happens to be feminine, even though it doesn't look like it. So really, here the te'avah is what she will desire. Who's the she? Nafshecha, your nefesh. Okay? Ve'otecha, but you, ekach, I have taken. Umalachta, and you shall reign. Bechol, over all or everything. Asher, which te'aveh nafshecha, which your soul desires. Okay? Any comments or questions? Okay. Vehayita. So again, we've got a vav on there, right? That's going to change the aspect. And then this is the verb haya, right? Haya, to be, to be. Hayita, we've got our ta at the end. That should remind you of ata. Don't worry, that one's never feminine, third person. This is always, the ta is just like the ta in ata, up at the top. Same one over there. It's getting kind of busy there on the screen. Maybe I'll erase these arrows. It's bothering me a little bit. There we go. You see it. It's right there, right? Ata. Vehayita. So hayita is you became. Usually it would mean like you became. Vehayita means and you will be or you will become. So hayita, you were or you became. Vehayita, you will be. And you will be. Oops, I'm sorry. I had the arrow on the wrong screen. Melech. Vehayita melech. You will be king. Al. Over. Yisrael. Over Israel. Okay, great. Good. Harrison says very clear. Good. Yeah. Don't forget to like. Listen to Betty. Okay. Verse 38. V'haya im tishma et kol asher atzavecha v'halachta vidrachai v'asita hayashar be'einai lishmol chukotai umitzvotai ka'asher asa David avdi, or Dawid, if you like. Vehaya. So haya, again, I said, is to be. So haya means it was, or he was. And then we've got our vehaya, changing our aspect. So instead of it was, and it will be, and it will be, it shall be. Oh, I did not touch anything. How did that happen? Amazing. Im, that's if. Now, sometimes people confuse if and with. Shalom, Evan. All right, South Africa's in the house now. Great. The world is really represented all over the place. Love it. Im. So there's a little way to remember this that my Rabbi Jacob, taught me. And, okay, let's... Oh, you know what? Maybe we'll just do this. I have a fresh one here. All right. So sometimes people get confused. Im with the aleph versus im with the ayin. And that's because we don't usually pronounce the ayin, do we? In Israel today, ayin is not pronounced. Im. So they both are im, right? Or im, depending on how the accent falls. Okay. So the first one is if. And the second one is with. So there's a nice little mnemonic my rabbi taught me. He said, look, here's how you used to tell them apart. And we weren't doing the I'm, right? So I wish we'd done I'm. That's why I tried to pronounce the ayin for you guys, so it's less confusion, right? We see that they actually sound different or sounded different back in the day. So here's how it works. Just as the first one starts with the letter aleph, which is the first letter in the alphabet, right? Im. The English word if starts with an I, okay? And ayin for im comes later than aleph because aleph is first, right? So aleph is first and then im is later. Same thing with the English. I is first and W is later. I mean, it might kind of seem a little bit silly, but it helped me. Maybe it'll help you guys too. See? So Aleph, in the Aleph bet, comes before ayin. And I comes before W. See? If it helps, it helps. If not, oh well. We only wasted about 60 seconds. Raphael says, why melech al versus malachta be? Is this stylistic, or is there a nuance to notice? Yeah, I don't know if you saw before what I wrote. I think this is stylistic of First Kings, but I think they're borrowing from the syntax of mashal be. Right? Where did I write that? I thought I wrote that somewhere. Is it here? Ah, it's here. Here it is. Like mashal plus be means to rule over something, right? So mashal be Yisrael, so many years, right? Okay. So to rule over Israel. Or mashal Behuda, he ruled over Judah, right? And so it seems like the style of mashal plus be, the writer of First Kings has adopted and is using that bait, but instead of mashal, they're using with the synonym malach. But yeah, it's something I noticed also. It's the mashal idiom. Mashal be, well, here we have malach be. Okay, good. Harrison said it is helpful. Nice observation, though, Raphael. Yeah. Okay, so if tishma. Now this one is second person. My eyes scanned ahead a little bit. Okay, so here we have an imperfect verb again. Oh, what's happening? No. It's got a tav at the beginning. So that tav is going to remind you of the tav in ata. Oh, you can't see that at all, can you? That tav there, ata, you. So you got the same thing here. That's that tav. So that should be your memory hook. When you see that affixed to the front of the verb, the t, it's either going to make you think of a ta or it's going to be she. Sorry about the she thing. So if t, you will shema. Will hear, like Shema Yisrael. We hear it all the time, right? If you will hear, or listen to, sounds better, I think. Et, the DDO, we don't translate that. Same as we had up there. Kol asher atzavecha. Kol, everything, asher, which, atzavecha. This might be a little harder to recognize. The verbal root is tzadi, vav, hey. And so you remember when a verb ends in hey, the hey often goes away. And that's what happened here. The hey has gone away. And we're left with the verbal suffix, cha. So you kids be good and memorize your suffixes. They're really important. See how often they show up? On the end of verbs, on the end of nouns. By the way, this doesn't happen in modern Hebrew anymore. This is some part of the elegance of the language that has been lost. You can't say atzavecha. You'd have to say atzaveh otcha, right? Make it two words. Bible can say it in two words also. The Bible's got the flexibility and the elegance. You can either say atzaveh otcha or atzavecha. Okay? So when you have a suffix at the end of a verb, usually that's the same as having the DDO like we have with the suffix at the end, like we have up here, otcha, right? So the Bible could have said atzaveh with the hey intact. Hello, Mr. Hey would be there. And then otcha, or otecha rather. I will command you. Okay, that aleph again, reminding us of the aleph from ani. Not to be confused with Sister Annie. Okay, that makes us think of ani. Ani for I. Okay, so I will tzava, like mitzvah. Mitzvah, there's a memory clue for this verb. Cha, which I will command cha, you. Yeah, Yakargat, I will command you, exactly. Raphael says, like you can say bechem and alechem. Hey, sure. If that helps, sure, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. The halachta. So here we have the ta at the end again. So that ta is going to remind us of ata. It's nicer when it's at the end of the verb. That's our ta from this word up over on the upper right, ata. We got the ta. We have the whole ta. They just shouldn't write the hey. Sometimes you will see the hey in older forms, especially in the Torah. Sometimes you'll see the hey at the end, because remember they didn't have nikudot. They didn't have the vowels back then. So the Masoretes basically they're correcting this for technically being a defective form. You would have expected to have the hey at the end, the whole ta from ata, but we don't most of the time. Usually it's defectively written. Oh, okay. Raphael asks, is there a reason to use al versus beit? Do they have very slight nuances in meaning if they both can mean over? For instance, is it grammatically correct to use them interchangeably? Okay, beit. Well, let me think. It gets difficult when we're trying to map prepositions in any language from one language to another. It never has a one-to-one mapping. So there are definitely going to be instances where you could use them interchangeably, and then there's going to be some times when you can't, right? The one example when you can't is you can't say mashal al. Actually, I don't want to say you can't. It's just the language expects b. That verb, he's married to beit. He doesn't want to give beit away. So mashal b, to reign over something, right? Also bachar. Here's a good example. So bachar, let me go back to this other page. So, bachar, who knows what bachar means? Bachar. Bachar is to choose. Choose, okay? Now, bachar expects a beit. Okay? So you'll see this in the Sidur. You'll see Bachar Banu. Bachar Banu. He chose us. Bachar Banu, Mikol Ha'amim, from all the nations, right? All the peoples, okay? It would sound really weird to say Bachar Aleinu, like alien, like not correct. So even though there are many instances where you're exactly right, you will be able to exchange. There's that going to be like, here's al. Al's got some meanings, okay? And then beit has a certain range of meanings. And there's going to be an inner overlap, right? But there's also places where it's not going to make sense to do it, and it will sound weird, okay? Yeah. Actually, there should have been more overlap than I drew there. maybe we do like 70% overlap, yeah? For example, beit can have the meaning of among, right? Like, or within a person. I could say, Ra'iti becha, I saw in you. Kind of like in English, right? I saw in you a melech, a king, right? Okay. But if I said, Ra'iti alecha, melech, I saw a king on you, right? Or next to you. It could either mean like on you or he's like next to you. You see, so the nuance has changed a bit. It's drifted a bit. So yeah, there is some overlap, but not a complete overlap. They're not. So that's a long way of saying no. They're not completely interchangeable. Good question. Yeah, sorry, I had missed that question. I thought it was what you said before, but malach, so my eyes didn't read it. Okay. Let's see. Annie, like my joke about Ani and not Annie? Pei says, too long. The answer's too long. Right, also against. Well, all can also have the meaning of against also, yeah, sometimes. Especially in the prophets. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, Raphael says that's why reading often will help grasping the uses. Yeah, you start to feel like something feels weird, right? So it's not all going to be rules-based. It's going to be when you're swimming in the language like we're doing with our immersion, your mind is going to start working things out sometimes, and something will just feel wrong. Like, that's not wrong. That's not right, right? And yeah. Yeah, almost, Jeff. Yep, just a mem on the end, amim. Yeah, bachar banu mikol ha'amim. Yeah. Or bonu, yeah, in Ashkenazi. Yep. Yeah, in Ashkenazi it'd be bocher banu mikol ha'amim. Ha'amim. Nice. Okay. Why did that change? It's funny. I went to send a nice thing, the little heart thing on YouTube, and instead it changed my screen. All right. Continuing. Good class. I like the interaction, guys. Don't be shy to ask questions and stuff. All right. I love that the notes stay. Halachta. So halach, we know halach, right? The sign is halach, or there's an alternate sign, halach. Halachta, you walked. Okay, but we've got our vav there. Why are you changing? Don't change. Don't change. Stay the same. Okay. We're going to change the aspect. Ve halachta. I changed it to green and it's blue. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm a little obsessive about things. It needs to be green. Okay. There we go. And halachta, you will walk, right? Or if you will walk. Sometimes we'll see the syntax of im or im with a vav later, and it kind of connects the thoughts. Im tishma'et kol asher atzavecha. If you will hearken, hear, listen to everything which I command you. And so it's not just hearing it, okay? And halachta, you will walk. Vidrachai, okay? Vidrachai. So here, this beit, this is in, and then this is derech. This word is derech. Derech is you also know this, right? Derech, way. Derachim are ways. Drop the mem, darchei, ways of, and then we put that yod suffix on the end. The yod suffix means my, right? My. If you put it on the end of a verb, usually you have to use a noun to attach it. This is just a noun, so we're okay with just the yod, right? The famous example, azaftani, or in Jewish Aramaic, shabachtani, right? You abandon me. So the noun is just helping to put the yod on the end. So it sounds right? Because we don't really do diphthongs in Hebrew. We want to say azaftai. I guess there's some light diphthongs, but not too strong. So when it's I, that's my plural, right? So be in drachai, my ways, in my ways. V'halachta vidrachai, in my ways. And you know, it wouldn't sound too weird, Raphael, to say al drachai. That wouldn't sound weird. I think that would still be okay for semantically swapping them out. Ve'asita. Oh, you know, there is a stylistic power to using the bait here that we used it up above. Maybe that's even influencing, like attracting a bait. Ve'asita. So this is the verb asa, ayin, seen, hey, and the hey went away. So we're just left with ayin and seen. Okay, asita. The ta is you. So the ta at the end of the verb is telling us who's doing it. You are doing it. Okay. You are asaing. So asita means you did, right? You did, or you made. And then we have our vav, conversive. It's kind of weird. When I move my mouse sometimes, it changes the slide. I'm just sliding the mouse to select something, and the slide goes, oh, see, there did it again. I'm not really sure what's happening with that. That's strange. It's a nice mouse, but it's got a mind of its own. Okay, here's the vav. Again, it's blue. I selected green. Distress. Why? There we go. All right, there we go. Okay. And instead of asita meaning you did, asita meaning you will do, the yashar. Yashar means upright. It can also mean straight, right? The straight path. In fact, derech hayashar, these two kind of go together. If this were poetry, I would think that these were stereotyped terms that have been separated in order to make a strong attraction and connection with the word that's in the middle, right? So in my paths, in my upright paths, you will do, right? But it's not really, maybe it's quasi-poetic, I'm not sure. Maybe we can't make that claim. Anyway, so, and you will do hayashar, the right, the upright, right? What is correct? Be, in Einai. So here we have another be. We got bait again, lots of baits, which might kind of answer better Raphael's question, like as far as stylistically using them. So we have bait here, in, and then this word is ayin. Ayin is eye, right? We've had that. And then einayim are eyes. Einayim, drop the mem. Einay, eyes of. Eyes of. I just moved the mouse. It's driving me crazy. No. Eyes of. We're going to put the yod on there, right? The yod. The yod is my. The eyes of my. The eyes of me. Here's our yod. So in my eyes. In my eyes. You could also say in my sight, right? To be a little less hyperliteral. Brenda says, is there something I can do to adjust the mouse settings? Probably. I just don't understand why a movement, just like moving the mouse, not pressing any of the buttons, would cause a screen change, like a slide change. So if I understood why that's being sent, I could probably figure it out. Harrison says, me eyes. Yeah, me eyes. Me eyes. Me eyes. Lishmo. This is an infinitive. Lishmo. Right? So instead of the inseparable preposition bait, we have the inseparable preposition lamed instead. Lamed. And the reason it's lishmo is because we have this rule. When you try to attach one of the inseparable prepositions, and they are... Actually, let me go to another clean screen. Hold on. Beit, kaf, and lamed. I wrote those two close to each other. Lamed. These guys are inseparable. That means they like to exist connected to the beginning of the word, right? To the word that they're in relationship with. And they usually like to have a shewa underneath them, or shewa if you like to use the modern shewa. Okay. The problem is we have this rule that at the beginning of a word only at the beginning of a word, and I like to use X's just to mean there's some letters in the word, okay? At the beginning of a word, you cannot have the first two letters with shewas under them. Oops, it's behind my head. See, I can see it on my tab, but you couldn't see it over there. So, this is not allowed. So what will happen is there'll be some kind of lengthening. Usually that first one will lengthen to a very, very short vowel, the single dot chirik. See my fingers blocking it. It's going to look like that, okay? And that's what's happening here. So the infinitive for shamar, to safeguard, keep, or protect. Here it is. Shemol. And then we put the to keep, just like we do in English. To keep. Well, the word to happens to be the lamed. And he wants to have a schwa, but it's not allowed because you'd have two schwas in a row at the beginning of the word. We can't say le shemol. So instead he lengthens to the single dot there, chirik. Lishmol. Hey, shalom, Duva. Thank you for that comment about the great lessons. Thanks, guys. Great. Okay. So, lishmol, to safeguard, to keep, to protect, to put a hedge around. Chukotai. So this is the word chukot, which, if it were just by itself, we can just interpret as like statutes, right? But look, it's followed by umitzvotai. So, mitzvah, when it's by itself, means any kind of commandment. But when it's in the presence of chukot, like chukah or chukim or a chok, then mitzvah has the meaning of a commandment that I've given you a reason for it, right? And a chok or a chukah, it means a commandment that you don't know why. You're just doing it out of obedience. Excuse me. Preempted most of that cough. Okay. All right, so we have the same suffix there, the plural suffix for mine. So it's my plural, I, chukotai, and mitzvotai, just like Adonai. Adonai, my lords, literally, my lords. So, chukot, statutes, or kind of wordy in English, commandments that we don't know the reason for, of me, mine, and u. We've got u. Why is it an u instead of a v? What's going on there? It's an u instead of a v. What's happening? Ooh. What's the rule? Top of the page. Got it up over there. Right? It's our bump schwa rule again. The word starts with the mem, and that's the m in bump. So the green u is going to happen with our vav. Is going to become u. U and mitzvotai. My mitzvot, my commandments that I give you the reason for. No problem, Felisa. Glad you're here. Shalom. Just make sure to click like and we'll forgive you. Raphael says, I wonder, is that rabbinic exegesis? I think I remember reading something from Ibn Ezra or Rashi saying something similar. Oh, about the mitzvot versus chukot? Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't really call it that way. I'd say, yeah, it's from the sages. It's from our tradition. Yeah, you're right. Like when you look up chukot or chukah in a modern lexicon, it's not going to give the explanation that I just gave you. Yeah, you're right. So this is definitely from Jewish tradition. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, continuing. Ka asher. Maybe I'll just point this out for those of you who are curious. You might be wondering, hey, you just said you can't have two schwas in a row, and it should be a schwa under the inseparable preposition kaf, right? So why is it an ah here? Okay, what's happening here with asher? It's the same thing. Same concept as here, as lengthening. But what happens is when the word starts with what we call a composite schwa, this one's called chatuf patach. It's like half of a patach. See? So you got the patach there, and then you got the schwa in front of it, right? But that's really one symbol. The other one that we have is, we have a couple others, right? We've got this one, and we have this one. Chatuf kamet and chatuf sagol, okay? So when you have your word starting with one of those, and we want to attach an inseparable preposition, beit, kaf, or lamed. In this case, the example we're looking at, it's a kaf. You also cannot start with a schwa, because technically those things are both schwas. This one and that one. This is a composite schwa, and this is a schwa. You don't have to know the names, but you can't do it. You can't start. So instead, we're going to lengthen this guy again, but instead of lengthening just to the one dot chirik, he's going to lengthen to whatever sound is under these guys, okay? So he's going to take whichever one of those he likes. I mean, whichever one he's next to, right? So if he's next to this guy, he's going to copy that over, and we're going to have ka. If you wrote him over here, he's going to copy this part, and you're going to have the comments underneath. If it's next to this one, then it's going to take the sagol, and that's going to go underneath, okay? Raphael says the major lexicons and dictionaries always overlap and seem to never agree totally on these words except for mitzvah. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes it's really nice to have access to a couple lexicons and to be going through the sages and seeing what they have to say about stuff too, right? Because a lot of them, they do really give you some nuances, like Elohim versus Adonai, right? One about usually being used in judgmental cases, right? Or we've talked about Mirachok, right, and Natsav, having a hint of the Holy Spirit being present. You know, you're not going to have lexicons telling you that kind of stuff. So the Jewish tradition does add a whole lot, that's true, to interpreting the text, or at least going deeper. I could say going a bit deeper, right? Like, if you just translated mitzvot and chukot as statutes and mitzvot as commandments, are you really going to miss that much? You're not going to have some heresy pop up or something, right? So it's okay. It's just the flavor of the language. These patterns were really noticed by the sages, these righteous men who were in the Word 16 hours a day, going through stuff and, noticing, and many of them had large swaths of the Scripture memorized. Some of them had the whole Tanakh memorized. And so, yeah, that's just, they're going to notice things. And so it's nice to borrow from their knowledge and not be scared of them. Like so many are, oh, what do I care about those old rabbis? What could they teach me? Or they didn't even believe in Yeshua. What could they have to say? Well, a lot. They've got a lot to say. And they notice a lot. Besides just living and breathing in the Lashon HaKodesh, there's a lot of things that they've noticed. Yeah. So, okay. 45 minutes. So I'm thinking maybe we'll... we went more in depth than I had planned, but it kind of felt right. I hope this is helpful for you guys. So I think I'll finish this verse and maybe we'll be done with the lesson tonight instead of forcing it through other verses. I know Gary wants to go more and more always. So there's the ka asher. See, we've got the the composite schwa, and so we copied the ah from it. Ka asher. And almost always when you see ka asher, even though literally it means like which, or like that, we say according to how. It's usually functioning adverbially like that. According to how, asa, did David, David, avdi. That's the avid of avid. We know this word. Avid can mean servant or slave, right? Either of those. And then you put the on the end. That's mine. So, avdi is my servant or my slave. Avdai would be my servants or my slaves, right? The I ending like we have here. Derachai are my ways. Darchi is my way. Darchi, darchai. Malki, my king. Malchai, my kings. Avdi, my servant. Avdai, my servants. Yeah, for which, exactly. Yeah, Asher is actually kind of a... This guy here, maybe I'll just mention that and close with that. This guy here, Asher, this is what's called the relative pronoun, but it doesn't always function as a pronoun. So Asher, when you learn it the first time, like the first few semesters in Hebrew, you'll learn it as two W words, like who or which, right? If it's a person, it's who, right? The one who did such and such, not the question who, right? Or which, the thing which does this, right? Or maybe sometimes even that. But it can also mean when, like when something happened, and it can mean where, right? So there's a couple other, less often it can have those meanings. And so if you think of it, and then when we attach the kaf to it, it almost always means the kaf is according to. In this case, asher is how. It takes on that meaning with the kaf there. Just syntactically, it's almost always asher, according to how, and then you're going to see like, you commanded, or something like that. So according to how, Asa David avdi. David, my servant. That whole thing together is the subject. And what did he do? Asa, he did. Okay. Any other comments or questions before I let you guys go? Oh yeah, we had the technical problem at the beginning. I'm thinking, why did we run up against time here? Yeah. Oh, but it's still 48 minutes on this particular lesson. Okay, look, if you'd like to support what we're doing, this ministry does operate entirely. We survive entirely on donations. Yep. Used to have a business, but that died during COVID. So, so we depend on your donations. We depend on tithes and offerings, all that kind of stuff. If you like to sign up for a monthly donation, you can do that here easily at patreon.com/HebrewLiteracy. If you want to save us a few shekels, you can do it on paypal.me, like me/HebrewLiteracy instead. If you want to sign up for monthly, let me know. I can make a button for you that'll make that work. And there's slightly lesser fees over there at PayPal. And if you're in the Philippines, you can always just send a donation to Paymaya. Send it to Hebrew. Okay, if you send it to Hebrew, we'll get that. All right. Thank you so much for all your support. Mark says, being new to your channel, I have definitely been blessed since I've started watching. Thank you all. Hey, that's great. Thank you for that comment, Mark. I appreciate it. Really appreciate the encouragement. May Adonai bless your learning. You guys have a great day or evening, whatever the case may be. And please remember to pray for our military, always fighting against the wicked Islamo-fascists.